Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, and welcome to another video, another edition of electricairmobility.news website. And this article took me a while to write because it's the culmination of 20 years of working in the electric mobility industries, which in and of themselves are brand new industries. And what that means is that there's nothing set in stone. There's nothing that we can mostly rely on. And of course, there are some business practices that we can use and adapt and adopt. But for the most part, you're dealing with people who are either transitioning from another similar type of industry into this new electric mobility industry, or brand new people that come out of nowhere and oftentimes dazzle us. So my whole thought about with this article, and after seeing that the due diligence article picked up a lot of views, I thought, well, hey, let's write about partnerships. How do we partner with people? How do we collaborate with people? What do we have to look for? What are the telltale signs that this person is better to work with than this person? And oftentimes, what I find is the same thing that we find in general, and it's the same way we kind of look at politics. I think a lot of people look at politics and only listen to what people say without actually checking the facts, right? Checking the actions behind. And by not doing this, then we're just sort of, left to listen to words and nothing very much concrete with. So this article, I wrote it with really making sure you do your due diligence, that you back whatever is being said by practical, concrete, demonstrated actions, and of course, more than anything, a background, a well-proven track record background. So I entitled this Cultivating Collaborative Success, Navigating Partnerships in Advanced Air Mobility. Forming a meaningful and productive partnership in a dynamic landscape such as ours, Advanced Air Mobility, AAM, is really hard because we have fresh, newly minted experts who all of a sudden come out of nowhere. But we also have some serious veterans who are more or less along the way. So it's really hard to find, who you can work with and who is, less than desirable. And trust me, there are less than desirable people, as we've seen in the EV industry, and as of course we're watching in any industry in general. I'm not targeting our industry. So the challenge of choosing a partner in AAM is really, how do you determine it? Who you can collaborate, who you can foster successful relationships and partnerships, and it's not easy. Unfortunately, there are no templates that you can use. There's no checklist that you can use, but there are common sense things that you can do. There are a lot of ways of just slowing down a little bit. Unlike what I do, I'm pretty active. I've got a lot of energy, and so just to make sure you take your time to scope out the dynamics. And it's exciting to jump into a new project. It's exciting to work in this industry. I mean, after all, we're liberating mobility. We're inviting a new electric propulsion design into new aircraft design, into car designs. If you know how an EV is designed, it's fundamentally very different than how you design a gasoline car. And so it's important to understand how you operate. I'm a people gatherer. I automatically find something, want to share it with people, want to bring people together and go, all right, guys, let's get to work. How can we make this work? And so in the past, I didn't automatically sit down and start to think, who are you? How do you function? Are you a team player, or are you somebody who's just going to run off with it? And there are people like that, and of course there are people who are excellent team players. So beyond first impressions in AAM, the industry today is flourishing with veterans, and these veterans come from the aerospace industries, and they have transitioned into here. I can tell you about Rex Alexander, for instance. He's my infrastructure guru. Whenever I think of anything infrastructure, any kind of regulations, anything like that, I talk to Rex. Because, well, Rex knows what he's doing. He's been around for a long time. He flies helicopters. He's been involved in a lot of safety protocols and talks all the way up to Capitol Hill. So he really is my go-to person, and I've got 5 other people like that I absolutely depend on to gauge whether or not what I'm seeing, what I'm thinking is accurate. So that's really the first thing you should do, is find your trusted network of people, and know that it takes years to develop that. It's not something that happens with a conversation or a handshake. It's something that happens for a long time. Jim Sherman has been a good friend of mine at AIAA for many, many, many years, and he is one of the rare people I trust with things that I wouldn't tell anyone else, and vice versa. So with him, I'm always able to really understand the situation from a different angle and elevate and take, well, as my yoga teacher used to say, 2 inches above, 2 inches behind. That's where you want to be most of the time. So the adage here is still true, and really more than ever in aerospace should always be first and foremost trust, but verify. And that's important because that should be our guiding principle. I'm an individual who thrives on connecting people. I connect resources, I connect companies, and I have to exercise extreme caution and discernment in assessing the potential contributions and reliability of any of my partners, and not just single entity partners, but companies as well, right? Some companies have a good track record, and some companies have a sort of iffy track record. Now, this gets extremely difficult when you have a startup. The startup might have a great idea, but what have they done? And so this is where you really need to get into the thick of it. What have you done? What kind of testing have you done? What does the research and development look like? Of course, what the funding look like, so that helps too. And the same thing happens with people too. Yes, you're new to this industry. What do you know? How much do you need? How can we collaborate? And quite frankly, some people come out of the blue and tell you that they understand, they've been working in it for a long time, and well, when you do your due diligence, you realize that no, not really. These people are great at getting eyeballs and attract attention, but best not work with these people unless they have some hidden gem of potential in them, and that's up to you to find out. So these are some of my electric mobility lessons learned over 17 years professionally, 20 years as far as being interested in working more or less in the industry. A sort of a practical guide, and I think I broke it down in 6 points, so not too difficult. But the very first thing you want to do when you meet someone is you want to define the scope of the project. And even meeting a single other consultant in our line of industry, I tend to look at it as a project, because that will lead to projects. Okay, so if one is really good at one thing and you're good at another, then all of a sudden you have a sort of a mesh that becomes different types of projects that you can take on. So before engaging any potential partners, whether again a single entity or a company, clearly define the scope and objectives of what you are looking for, what you do. And I might add, clearly define what you do best and what you don't really do that best. So for me, for instance, is I can see a system, I can see a product, I can see a tool, I can see almost anything and extrapolate. I can see where it's going to be in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. That's why I was one of the very first 5 journalists in the EV industry, because I knew that the potential of that, married to what we then called alternative energies, now we call them renewable energies, I knew that the potential was more than a paradigm shift. It was disruptive at the very end. It was efficient, and this is something we don't have with internal combustion engines, okay? Which I've worked really fine to this day, but hey, nothing stays the same in this universe. Everything moves, everything vibrates, everything changes, as the old Hermetic axiom goes. So define the scope of the project. Define what you are good with, and that really leads to my second point, which is identify complementary strength. So I'm good at seeing the bigger picture. I'm not that good at details. That my wife of 28 years, poor thing, she is the one who's really good at that. So I kind of run things by her as much as I can. And I usually look for people who are good at details. They're good at project management. I'm a great project manager, but not in the infinite details. I know how to keep everything online. Guidelines, I have them and everything is fine. But I might miss a beat or two. So I need to work with someone who is much more involved in the day-to-day in the day-to-day operations. As much as I would not be a good CEO, I make for a good chief strategy officer. Strangely enough, right? Not that strangely enough. So look for your complementary strength, determine what each partner will bring to the table, and then look for complementary skills, expertise, and resources that align with your project's needs, that align with what you want to do in this industry, right? The third one is probably the most important point, and I probably should have layered the points differently, but they're all equally important, I think, but it's the due diligence. And more than ever today, in 2024, in AAM, we need to do our due diligence. Simply put, we started doing background checks as of 6 months ago, and we found some discrepancies that really make you scratch your head and make me not want to work with some people or some groups, as a matter of fact. So we can't stress this point enough. Conduct your own due diligence, and don't simply rely on what is being said or what you're being told. That's easy. Again, that's just like listening to politicians but not looking at what they've done, or listening to what a company says but noticing it doesn't actually do what it says it's doing. Does that sound familiar? So conduct thorough research and background checks on potential partners. It sounds so obvious, but it is so important to do. And as much as we would all love to live in a wonderful world and la la land where everybody gets along and nobody lies, because why would you do that? It's so incredibly, well, stupid. There's no other words for it. But double check the facts. What was said? What about the backgrounds? And just pick up the phone. Talk to the people who have worked with these people and say, in no uncertain ways, how is this person? Did this person do this? What was the position of this person's? Did this company actually promise this? Did they do this? So you need to ask those hard questions, and they're not hard considering how much problems you can avoid later on the road. And let me tell you, I've seen a few. They're not pretty. I've had to walk away from projects. I have to walk away from prominent positions because there were a few black ducks along the road. How is that for diplomacy? Please refer to my previous article on due diligence to mitigate risks and make informed decisions. This is really what will guarantee the success, or guarantee most of the success of your project or your endeavors, your collaborations. Another point that's important to make is access consistency. Now, in our day and age of always on instant gratifications, Instagram, TikTok videos, and short attention span, it's hard to gauge the prolonged track record of a person, right? So in my case, God forbid, I hope you never see my first articles. They were horribly written, but it showed potential, right? I was writing about futuristic case scenarios for the electric propulsion or the electric mobility. We didn't call it like that then. But you can see my progress. You can see I worked with companies like Michelin. I wrote for Clean Technica for many years. I started my own car news cafe website with a friend of mine. I'm no longer involved in that, but there is a track record. I worked with a lot of companies. I've been sent around the world to talk, to present keynote presentations, to meet people, to interview people, all the way out to China. I've been there. I've seen it. So I've met a lot of people, and being trained, you might not know this, but I am a trained business coach. I went to university for this. I know how to get to the who behind the person. In other words, when I interviewed a person, I wasn't as much interested in the technicalities of their products, and other people do that very well. I'm more interested in, who are you? What gets you out of bed in the morning? What is your main motivation? And I think that's really important to assess straight from the get-go. So assess the continuity and the consistency of someone's background. And it could be as simple as this. If they commit to providing resources or support, do they follow through? Do they introduce you to their partners? If you bring them on a certain amount of projects, did they bring you on a certain amount of projects, right? I found myself many times where I have a few projects, and I'm not stupid. I'm obviously going to use people who I need for a given project. But after I introduce people to 2-3 projects, if I don't see the elevator coming back, sort of, I sort of temper my expectations going forward. I might only use them in a specific way for future projects, or I won't share half and half of the project with these people because I know that they don't always bring back the elevator down to me. So this is really important. It needs to be done, and hey, it'll make you feel good about yourself, right? Spotlight stealing. This is something that we can't say enough of this, but how many times are you attracted to someone, to work with someone, and you find that they're very vocal, they talk a lot, they present well, I know, mea culpa, but they talk about themselves a lot. They talk about their successes. They talk about how good they are. And you find that it always goes back to them all the time, always about how good they are, what they've done, what they do, what they bring to the table. Now, saying it once or twice or 3 times, that's totally fine. But when it happens regularly, all the time, and when you hear things like, I do this, I do that, I did this, I did that, and you don't hear that that cements the team approach, the team playing approach, be careful. That's a red flag. And it doesn't mean the person is bad or the company is bad. It just means that maybe that person or that company has something to prove, and usually that will be a priority over your project. So be very careful with that. And the last one is really team orientation. And this is also a very tricky one because, especially in the US, a lot of people love sports, right? But we love a specific type of sports. They're usually very individualistic sports, even if it is within a team. In other words, we love football, but it's the quarterback we keep on looking at. We love baseball, but it's the differences in innings and this and that, which I still don't understand what baseball is all about. I was born in another country. I tend to prefer team sport groups, right? So rugby for me is the uber representation of team playing, because in rugby you have 3 types of people. You have the short, bulky ones. These guys are in the scrum. They push the other scrum around. They navigate the ball. And then you have the flankers like me, so we're not big, not small, although I'm much better on the wing side of things, but I don't run as fast as a winger. We're right in between these guys, right? We're right between the fast-running wings, but we can still tackle. And we're right, not as strong as somebody in the whole scrum itself. And then you have the wing guys, right? And these guys are light, they run, they do everything. But together in a rugby team, everybody plays together. So if a hooker or a pillar, the big guys, right, have the ball and is running, well, the whole team is behind in a V formation. And in rugby, you pass the ball behind always on the opposite leg, right? So never forward. You can kick forward, but anyway, way too technical for this. But what it means is that if somebody has the ball, whether I think they can score or not doesn't matter. I am behind there, and I take whatever line I'm supposed to take. It doesn't really matter. And the ball gets passed down to me. I take it, I run, I know that there's a V formation behind me, so on and so forth, right? And that's that kind of mentality that we try to see as much as possible in a team orientation. So rugby taught me, and teaches people a heck of a lot. And it's always fun, by the way, playing with people, not playing with rugby people, because it's always fun playing with rugby, especially after the game is over. But having people on your team who have played rugby, who understand rugby, because that usually means they're excellent team players. So, sort of a way of wrapping all of this up is we really can't stress enough the third point of due diligence. This is probably should be the first point, but anyway, maybe I'll rewrite this in a few years. What I experienced in the electric vehicle industry was that after years of really deep work, I mean from 2005 to 2010, we were being mocked most of the time. Either people said, yeah, it's the greatest thing in the world. Electric cars don't go uphill. Really, who thought of that one? All of a sudden, around 2010, 2011, when the industry is picking interest, everybody comes out. Everybody is an EV lover. And experts come out of the blue. I saw so many experts come out in 2010, 2011, 2012 that had absolutely zero background in it, that were just, casual readers, probably in fact, some of the people who commented on my articles all of a sudden became experts, and themselves after that became journalists, which was very interesting to see. But what it means is that today, these people, I don't know where they are. I don't know what they've done. I don't even remember their names, to tell you the truth, but they were hailed as experts. They went on TV, they were on Forbes, they were on so many places, and I was just stunned the whole time going, wow, we did all the serious work. Me and 10 other people easily, we did the serious work here and everything, and these guys are getting the limelight. It's not an ego thing. It's a beware thing. There are people who do that, and they're not bad people. They're great people. We want them. We need them because they get the people excited. They get the attention. They go on TV. They rah-rah the whole crowd and everything. However, today we don't know where they are. Most likely, they left and went to look for the next shiny industry object. Guess what that shiny industry object is? Advanced air mobility. So now, what we're seeing in our industry in 2024 is what we kind of saw in the EV industry in roughly 2011. I'm going to say that just rounds it up pretty well. Where all of a sudden, yes, there were veterans in the industry, well known, and you know, we talked to each other, that was fine, but we had these new players, and that's what we're seeing in 2024. It started in 2023, where we have these new people coming on board. Now, some of them are excellent. In fact, one of my closest partner is one of them, and she's an amazing person, and I love working with her, and she can pull her weight and everything. But I've also seen people who, once you do your due diligence, there was nothing behind. You know, sometimes they even more than made up a few things about their backgrounds. And after a few months of working with them, you sort of realize that, there's something missing there. So they're great at speaking, put them out there, let them talk. But, you know, partnering with people like that is always a little dudgy because we don't really know what their true motivation is. I'm probably saying, you know, more than I should say here. But the fourth point is equally critical. And as resource gatherers like myself, we tend to get excited about potential synergies. But, you know, if by the second project you're bringing people on a second project and they still haven't introduced you to their partners, to other projects or what they're doing, you know, slow down a little bit, right? And make sure you readjust your expectations. And this is also why early on in the partnership negotiation agreements, whatever you want to call it, do a norms and expectations. Norms and expectations help determine what will be the norms of your relationship, your professional relationship, and what do you expect from the other, and what can the other person or company expect from you. Very important. We used to do this a lot before. I don't know, for some reason we don't do it as much right now. Regarding the fifth point, you know, be wary of partners who excessively talk about themselves. And this is true in anything, whether it's in your love life relationship or at work. People who talk a lot about themselves tend to have to demonstrate something. And that something can easily take priority over the goal or the mission of the project. So, you know, all of these are very common sense things, but it's good to put them all together. I'll reread the point just to sort of wrap it up right now, but define the project scope, meaning with the partner, with the entities. Identify complementary strength. What are you good at? What are they good at? And what can you bring together? Do your due diligence, check up on the people. It's great that, you know, your newfound partner, you know, saved the world and burning babies from burning hotels, but can you double check on all that? Can you show me the proof? The proof is in the pudding, right? Assess consistency of what they say and what they have done, meaning do they have a track record? Do they actually say that they will do something and don't deliver? That happens. We get busy, you know, things happen, right? And spotlight stealing. Do they always talk about themselves? Do you always hear I, but you don't hear the we? Be careful. And finally, team orientation. Ask people if they've played rugby before, and that will give you a pretty good sense of team playing. I'm going to give you my personal secret sauce because I think it's important to use that equation. But an equation that I use is very simple. It's called IQ plus EQ plus SQ. Usually give you well-rounded people. So what do I mean with all of this? Everybody's familiar with IQ. That's your intellectual quotient, or how intelligent you are. So somebody who scores really high on the IQ but low on the EQ and the SQ, and SQ, by the way, is the spirituality, right? Not necessarily religion, but spirituality, understanding how life works, understanding the dynamics of, you know, the the laws of reciprocity, the laws of karmic actions, if you want to think it like that. But whatever you do has repercussions in this world. Remember, what was it? Einstein used to say, we're quantum beings living in a Newtonian world. Well, let's step into quantum thinking that our observations definitely modify the situation, right? So somebody with a high IQ, low EQ, low SQ, well, it's somebody who's really intelligent, but probably lacks empathy and lacks that certain, life understanding dynamic. Reversely, someone with a high EQ, low IQ, low SQ is going to be very empathic, but not necessarily the best decision maker. And again, same thing, somebody with a high spiritual understanding of life, but very low emotional quotient or intellectual quotient will be full of theories, but not a lot of practice. So find somebody who's well-rounded, somebody who has, who can, talk about things intelligently, understands first principle thinking, getting down to the bottom layer of any situation, any problem. Somebody with empathy says, oh, wow, you're struggling with this, let me help you with that. This is outside what we do, blah, blah, blah. And somebody who understands the laws of give and take, the laws of dynamics, the law of vibrations, whatever you want to call it. The rugby analogy, I've already spoken about it. It really helps me determine whether or not somebody is a good player or not. So remember, successful partnerships are built on time, endurance, trust, transparency, and a demonstrated shared vision. And I really insist on demonstrated shared vision. Do these people go out there and say, my partner and I, or do these people go out there and say, I? Does this company says, we are doing this, but don't really talk about how you're integrating all the systems and everything? Very important. By clearly defining your expectations early, conductive due diligence, fostering a team-oriented culture, meaning maybe everybody shares alike, you will cultivate long-lasting and productive relationships that propel your AAM endeavors to new heights. And I'll have to say one thing here. Sebastian Blanco is one of my oldest friends in the electric mobility industry, and I met him in 2006, 2007. He was one of the original EV riders with us. Today we still talk, and he's still in that industry, although I'm still trying to get him into our industry, but we still talk. Sebastian is someone I trust. Sebastian is someone I brought with us to China when Xpeng wanted to meet foreign journalists and to make them see what they were doing. So these kind of relationships, I don't need to double check. I know who Sebastian is. I know who Jim is. I know who Rex is. I know who Tony is because I know their track records. So, navigating partnerships in AAM requires a thoughtful, measured, pragmatic approach. After all, this is aerospace. And if you know anything about aerospace, is two things define aerospace. Safety, and it takes a long time to get things going. Right, investors? Nothing like 6 months from now, returns of investments. No. Always a decade, $1 billion, and 1,000 engineers. And the old adage is probably still very true today, although in AAM we're sort of shrinking that approach a little bit. But by applying some of these lessons, hopefully, and guidelines, hopefully you'll be able to build stronger foundations, but at least more informed foundations that are mutually beneficial and will contribute to the successes of your projects and all of our successes within AAM. Because remember, one person or one company that does something truly horrendous out there, lies, cheats, deceits, brings down the whole industry. And that's something we don't need and we don't want out there. There are way enough naysayers out there. So I'd like to ask you, what have you learned? What are some of the strategies? What are some of the tips? What are some of the recipe to successful partnerships and collaborations have you learned? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Please comment on this article, on the video if you're watching the video or the podcast. Let me know. My name is Nicolas Zard. I am the CEO and founder of Electric Air Mobility. It's a company that conceptualizes, designs, and implements vertiport infrastructure and energy solutions. So this is within advanced air mobility. What we do is we do the places where these electric aircrafts take off and land, and that means also using electricity storage, hydrogen storage, jet fuels, designing vertipads where they land and take off, designing terminals, but a lot more goes into it. The technology of managing it all together, data security, even nuclear reactors are really excited about what's happening in small modular reactors these days, especially in molten salt reactors. So there's a lot that goes into it, and thankfully we're very well placed because we don't sell one product, we don't sell our product, we sell different products. We integrate different products together, and we work with some of the most successful OEMs out there, household names, and of course young and talented bright new startups. So please let us know what are your success stories for collaborations and partnerships. I would love to hear that. And in the meantime, I guess we'll see you. I'm on a roll these days. I'm writing a lot because I have a little bit more time, and I hope to continue like this for a while. Thank you, and we'll see you very soon again.